The great hall of the Galactic Council was huge. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed softly with blue light. Beings from all over the galaxy sat in their special seats, talking and waiting for the meeting to start. Daniel Carter walked slowly to the center of the room. He was a human, which meant he looked very different from everyone else there. His skin was pink, he had hair on his head, and he walked on just 2 legs. Most of the other beings in the room had tentacles or were made of rock or glowed like living light. Behind Daniel walked Amy Rodriguez, another human. She carried a small device that held all their important papers. Both humans wore simple blue uniforms that looked very plain compared to the fancy robes and armor that other species wore. The Zephyrians sat to the left side of the room. They looked like giant squids, but with beautiful patterns of light that moved across their skin. Their leader, Vextari, had been alive for over 300 years. He was considered very wise by his people. On the right side sat the granite beings. They looked like walking mountains, made of gray stone that moved and shifted. Their leader, Thane, spoke in a voice that sounded like rocks falling down a hill. They were known for building things that lasted forever, near the ceiling, floating. In special glass boxes were the lumina. They were pure energy, like living lightning that could think and talk. They were supposed to be the smartest beings in the galaxy. In the water-filled section were the Aquatic Federation members. They looked like fish with arms and legs, breathing through gills. Their section was filled with blue water that bubbled and moved. There were dozens of other species, too. Bug-like creatures that clicked and buzzed, plant beings that swayed even. When there was no wind and robots made of metal and light, Daniel reached the speaking area in the center. A small platform lifted him up so everyone could see him better. He pressed a button on his collar and his voice became loud enough for everyone to hear. "Important members of the council," Daniel said, his voice calm and clear. "I am Daniel Carter, speaking for all humans. We have come here today to ask for something important." Some of the aliens started whispering to each other. The translation machines turned their strange sounds into words Daniel could understand, but most of it was, "Not very nice." "The meat people want something," clicked one of the bug creatures. "What could they possibly need?" Bubbled one of the fish people. Daniel continued speaking. "We want permission to build new homes in the outer rim area of the galaxy. We want to start colonies there and explore new worlds." The room became quiet for a moment. Then Vextari lifted several of his tentacles and made a sound that the translator said was laughter. "The humans want to claim territory?" Vextari said, his voice full of amusement. "How funny. You have only been in space for a few hundred years. We have been traveling between stars for thousands of years." Thane, the rock being, made a sound like boulders crashing together. "Humans are still babies compared to us. Your fastest ships take months to go where we can go in days. You should focus on making better engines first." The Lumina representative, a swirling cloud of bright colors, pulsed with what looked like laughter. "Perhaps the humans should learn to walk before they try to run," the energy being said. More laughter filled the room. The bug creatures made clicking sounds, the fish people bubbled loudly, and even the plant beings swayed in what looked like amusement. Daniel felt his face get warm with embarrassment, but he kept his voice steady. "We understand your concerns, but humans have developed new ways to explore and live in space. We think these new ways could help everyone in the galaxy." "New ways?" Vextari's eye stalks moved in a way that showed he thought this was very funny. "What could a species that just learned to fly between stars possibly teach us?" "You barely know how to make your ships work," added another alien. "We have been building star cities since before your planet had intelligent life. Maybe you should stick to farming and simple crafts," said a robot-like being. "Leave the real work to species that know what they are doing." The laughter got louder. Every species in the room seemed to think the human request was the funniest thing they had ever heard. Amy leaned close to Daniel and whispered, "Sir, maybe we should show them our technical plans. We could prove that our ideas work." Daniel looked around the room at all the laughing faces. Beings with tentacles were slapping their seats. The rock people were making rumbling sounds of amusement. Even the serious energy beings were flickering, with colors that meant they found this very funny. "No," Daniel said quietly to Amy. "I think we have heard enough." He turned back to face the council. The laughter was still going on, but it was starting to quiet down a little. "Very well," Daniel said, his voice carrying clearly across the room. "Humanity withdraws its request. We thank the council for their time and their ... onion." Daniel stepped down from the platform. Amy followed him as they walked toward the exit. The laughter behind them got louder again as they left. "Good riddance," called out someone from the crowd. "Maybe now they will learn their place," said another voice. "Stupid humans," clicked one of the Bugdash beings. As the two humans reached the door, Daniel paused for just a moment. He turned back to look at the council members, who were still laughing and talking about how funny the human request had been. Amy noticed that Daniel was smiling. It was not a happy smile, but it was not a sad smile either. It was the kind of smile someone makes when they know something that others do not. "Sir?" Amy asked quietly. "Are you all right?" "I am fine," Daniel replied. "In fact, I think everything is going exactly as we expected." The door closed behind them with a soft hiss. The council members continued their meeting, already forgetting about the humans who had just left. They went back to their important discussions about trade routes and territorial disputes, the same things they had been arguing about for thousands of years. None of them noticed that Daniel had been recording everything with a small device hidden in his uniform. None of them wondered why the humans had given up so easily. None of them thought to ask why Amy had been smiling too as they walked away. In the hallway outside, Daniel pressed a button on his wrist device. "Mission accomplished," he said quietly. "We have our answer. Begin phase 2. The response came immediately through his earpiece. "Understood, sir. All stations are ready." Daniel and Amy walked down the long corridor toward their ship. Behind them, the council continued their meeting, never knowing that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The humans had asked politely for permission to expand into the outer rim. They had been laughed at and dismissed. They had been told they were too primitive, too stupid, too young to deserve respect. Now they knew exactly what they needed to do next, and the galaxy would never be the same. 3 months had passed since the humans left the council meeting. Most of the alien species had already forgotten about Daniel Carter and his strange request. They went back to their normal lives, trading goods between planets and arguing about who owned which star systems, but something was wrong. And it took them a while to notice. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his human ship, watching the last group of humans leave the planet below. The ship was called the New Horizon, and it was one of many human vessels that had been quietly moving through space for weeks. Jake was 42 years old and had been working in space for most of his adult life. He had served on ships that explored new worlds and helped build colonies on distant planets. Now he was helping with something very different. "Sir," said Lisa Bennett, the woman who handled communications on the ship, "the Zephyrians are trying to call Administrator Hayes again. They want to talk about the mining contracts." Jake looked at the screen that showed the alien message. The Zephyrians were the squid-like beings who had laughed at the humans in the council meeting. They had been buying special minerals from human miners for years. "Tell them that Administrator Hayes is not available," Jake said. "Should I tell them when he will be available?" Lisa asked. "No," Jake replied. "Just tell them he is not available." Lisa looked confused but sent the message. She had been asking the same question for weeks now, and Jake always gave the same answer. The same thing was happening all over the galaxy. Human workers who had been helping alien species for years were suddenly gone. They did not quit their jobs or ask for better pay. They just disappeared. On the planet Granite Prime, Counselor Thane was having a meeting with his advisors. Thane was the rock being who had laughed at the humans and told them they were too primitive to explore space. "Where are the human engineers?" Thane asked, his voice rumbling like an earthquake. "They left, sir," replied his assistant, a smaller rock being named Cross, "all of them. They packed up their tools and left 3 days ago." Did they say where they were going? No, sir. They just said their work was finished. Thane felt something he had not experienced in a long time: worry. The human engineers had been helping his people build better machines. Since they arrived, the Granite Collective had been able to make things faster and more efficiently than ever before. How much has our production dropped? Thane asked, cross-checked his datapad. 15%, sir. And it is getting worse every day. Far away on the Zephyrian homeworld, Vextari was having similar problems. The humans who had been helping his people grow food had vanished. They had developed new ways to make plants grow better and faster, increasing food production by 30%. Find them, Vextari ordered his servants. Offer them more money. Give them better living conditions. Whatever they want, but his servants came back with bad news. The humans had not just left the Zephyrian worlds. They had left everywhere. Their embassies were closed. Their offices were empty. Even their personal belongings were gone. The Lumina, the energy beings who thought they were the smartest in the galaxy, were also confused. Dr. Ellen Wright had been working with them for 5 years, studying how their energy-based life forms reproduced. She had been making great progress and had promised to publish her findings soon, but when they went to her laboratory, they found only a simple note: research finished. All files deleted. Good luck. The Lumina tried to continue the research without her, but they quickly realized they could not. Ellen had been asking questions that the Lumina had never thought to ask. She had been seeing patterns that they had missed. Without her, the research was impossible. The Aquatic Federation was facing an even bigger crisis. Their coral reefs, which were like underwater forests that many sea creatures needed to survive, had been dying for decades. Human marine biologists had developed new treatments that were saving the reefs and bringing them back to life, but now, those humans were gone too. The reef treatment programs were failing. The carefully balanced chemicals that the humans had created were running out, and no one knew how to make more. Dr. Gary Thompson had been the leader of the reef project. His office was empty except for a small datapad with a single message: treatment protocols are proprietary, sorry. All across the galaxy, the same pattern was repeating. Humans were not just leaving their own colonies. They were leaving every job, every project, every partnership they had been part of. The alien species tried to contact Earth, the human homeworld, but the communication channels were dead. The human government was not responding to any messages. Some aliens went to visit human colonies but found them completely empty. The buildings were still there, but they were clean and empty, as if no one had ever lived in them. There were no signs of where the humans had gone, Captain Morrison finished, overseeing the evacuation of the last human settlement in Council space. As his ship prepared to leave, he received a message from his superior officer. All human personnel have been successfully evacuated, the message said. Total withdrawal is complete. No traces left behind. Jake looked out at the empty planet. Below, just a week ago, it had been home to 50,000 humans. Now it looked like no one had ever lived there at all. Sir, Lisa said, I'm getting messages from 17 different alien species. They all want to talk to human representatives. Any emergency situations? Jake asked. The Aquatic Federation says their reef systems are collapsing. The Granite Collective says their factories are shutting down. The Zephyrians are reporting food shortages. Jake nodded. Standard response to all of them? Lisa had been sending the same message for weeks now. It was short and simple. Humanity is pursuing other opportunities. We wish you success. The aliens kept sending more messages. They offered money, better trade deals, and even apologies for how they had treated humans in the past. But the humans did not respond to any of them. Jake's ship jumped into hyperspace, leaving the empty planet behind. He was heading to coordinates that were not on any galactic map, to a place that the Council did not know existed. As the ship traveled through the strange space between stars, Jake thought about the Council meeting 3 months ago. He had watched the recording of Daniel Carter's speech and the laughter that followed. The aliens had thought humans were primitive and weak. They had made fun of human technology and human ideas. They had treated humans like children who did not understand how the galaxy worked. Now they were learning the truth. Humans had not been primitive. They had been essential. They had been the ones solving problems that the advanced aliens could not solve themselves, but it was too late. The humans were gone and they were not coming back. Jake smiled as he looked at the star charts showing their destination. The council had no idea what humans were really capable of. They were about to find out that their biggest mistake was not taking humanity seriously. The galaxy was about to become a very different place. 6 months had passed since the humans disappeared. The Galactic Council was meeting every day now, but their meetings were not going well. The different alien species were angry and scared. Many of them were blaming each other for problems that kept getting worse. The Great Crystal Hall was much quieter than before. Many seats were empty because some species could not afford to send representatives anymore. Their economies were falling apart without the humans to help them. Vextari, the Zephyrian leader, stood up to speak. His tentacles were moving in short, jerky motions that showed he was very upset. "This is impossible," he said, his voice echoing through the hall. "How can one primitive species cause so much trouble by just leaving?" Counselor Thane, the rock being, made a sound like grinding stone. "Perhaps we were wrong about how primitive they were." "Wrong?" Vexthari's eye stalks turned toward Thane. They could barely make their ships work properly. "We have technology they could never understand." "Then why is everything falling apart?" asked a representative from the insectoid hive. Clicking her mandibles nervously, the truth was becoming clear, even though none of them wanted to admit it. The humans had not been valuable because of their technology. They had been valuable because of how they thought. Illumina energy being flickered with frustrated colors. "We have been analyzing the situation. The humans were not just workers, they were problem solvers. They could see solutions that we could not." "That is ridiculous," Vextari protested. "We are thousands of years older than them. We have more experience, more knowledge." "Experience and knowledge are not the same as wisdom," replied the Lumina. "The humans thought differently than we do. They could adapt to new situations quickly." Director Kevin Palmer had been the head of the Human Integration Office before the humans left. His personal computer files had been found in an abandoned building, and they contained shocking information about how much the humans had really been doing. One file contained Kevin's observations about the different alien species. "The Zephyrians are brilliant at biological engineering, but they think in straight lines. When they face a problem they cannot solve with their usual methods, they get stuck. They need someone who can think around corners." Another file talked about the Granite Collective. "They can build machines that work for thousands of years, but they cannot innovate. They follow the same patterns their ancestors used. They need humans to show them new possibilities." About the Lumina, Kevin had written, "They understand energy better than anyone in the galaxy, but they are pure logic. They cannot make the creative leaps that breakthrough discoveries require. They need human intuition to bridge the gap between theory and practice." The economic reports were getting worse every day. Trade between different species had dropped by 40%. Research projects were stalling because the alien scientists could not work together without human coordinators to help them communicate. Most serious of all, several wars had started. The Granite Collective and the Zephyrians were fighting over mining rights in the Outer Rim. The Aquatic Federation was having conflicts with the silicon-based architects over water rights on shared planets. These conflicts had been brewing for years, but they had never turned into actual wars because human diplomats had always found ways to solve the problems peacefully. Humans had been neutral parties who could understand both sides of any argument. Commander Patricia Stone had been a human military advisor before the evacuation. Her final report to the Council Military Command had been found in the archives, and it painted a disturbing picture. Human tactical advisors were working with 60% of all joint military operations, her report said. They were not just following orders. They were anticipating problems, adapting to changing situations, and finding solutions that saved lives across multiple species. The report continued. Most alien commanders think in terms of standard procedures and established tactics. Humans could improvise and find creative solutions when standard approaches failed. Without them, our military effectiveness has dropped significantly. The alien species were starting to realize that humans had been much more than just another member of the Council. They had been the glue that held galactic civilization together. Dr. Alice Morgan had been a human physicist working on advanced theories about space and time. Her laboratory had been found empty except for some encrypted computer files that no one could decode. The alien scientists admitted that her experiments had been beyond their understanding. She was working on dimensional theory, said a confused Lumina researcher. Her mathematics were more advanced than anything we have seen. How is that possible? Asked the Zephyrian scientist. Humans only learned about faster-than-light travel 200 years ago. Maybe, said the Lumina, they learned more than we taught them. The search for the missing humans had become desperate. Every species in the Council was sending ships to look for them. They searched every planet, every space station, every asteroid belt where humans might have gone. They found nothing. The human colonies were not just empty. They were perfectly clean, as if they had been carefully prepared for abandonment. There was no garbage, no broken equipment, no signs of a hurried departure. Captain Ross Thompson had been in charge of a human research station near the galactic edge. His personal diary had been left behind, and it contained a troubling entry. The Council thinks we are primitive because we are new to space travel. They do not understand that we have been preparing for this possibility since we first met them. They taught us about faster-than-light travel, but we taught ourselves about hiding. The alien search teams found evidence that humans had been far more advanced than anyone had realized. Hidden laboratories contained equipment that looked nothing like the simple human technology the Council members had seen before. Energy readings from abandoned human facilities showed that they had been using power sources that the aliens did not recognize. Gravitational sensors detected traces of space-time manipulation that should have been impossible with known human technology. Commander Grace Rodriguez had been working on a deep space monitoring station when the humans disappeared. Her final transmission, recorded just before the station went dark, contained a chilling message. "We have been ready for 50 years. The implications were staggering. While the Council members had been dismissing humans as primitive newcomers, the humans had been secretly developing technology that surpassed anything the aliens possessed. The insectoid hive, with their collective intelligence, had been studying human behavior patterns for decades. Their final report about the humans was the most disturbing of all. Humans were not surprised by the Council's rejection of their request, the report said. They were prepared for it. All of their actions suggest that this outcome was planned from the beginning. The alien species were beginning to understand that they had been played. The humans had not made their expansion request because they needed permission. They had made it to test the Council's reaction, and the Council had failed the test. Admiral Rachel Torres had been the highest-ranking human military officer in Council space. Her personal files revealed the scope of human preparation. Every human in Council space has been part of the contingency plan for decades. We have been practicing evacuation procedures, developing new technology, and preparing for the day when we would need to leave. The files continued. We hoped it would never come to this. We wanted to work with the other species, but we always knew that they might reject us. When that happened, we were ready. The search for humanity continued, but the conclusion was becoming clear. The humans had not just left Council space. They had transcended it, using technology that the Council could not understand or track. The galaxy was changing, and the aliens were finally beginning to realize what they had lost. 1 year had passed since humanity vanished from the galaxy. The Council was desperate. For the first time in their history, all the different alien species were working together on the same project, finding the humans. Every ship, every scanner, every advanced detection system in the galaxy was being used to search for any trace of where humanity had gone. The Zephyrians sent their fastest scouts to explore distant star systems. The Granite Collective activated sensor networks that had been sleeping for centuries. Even the proud Lumina, who usually kept to themselves, were helping with the search, but they found nothing. The search had expanded far beyond the known galaxy. Ships were traveling to places that had never been explored before, following energy trails and gravitational disturbances that might lead to the missing humans. Captain Ross Thompson's research station had been found drifting in space, completely abandoned. Inside, the alien investigators discovered something that made them very uncomfortable. The station's computers contained files about experiments that the aliens could not understand. "These calculations are impossible," said Dr. Zelef, a Lumina scientist who was studying the files. "They are working with mathematics that we have never seen before." "How can that be?" asked Commander Voss, a Zephyrian military officer. "Humans only learned basic space travel from us. How could they develop advanced mathematics on their own?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Deep in the station's memory banks, they found a video message that Ross Thompson had recorded just before the station was evacuated. Ross appeared on the screen, looking tired but determined. "If you are watching this, it means you have finally decided to look for us. I want you to know that we do not hate you. We understand why you dismissed us. You saw our ships and our technology and you thought you knew everything about us." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "But you only saw what we wanted you to see. While you were teaching us about faster-than-light travel, we were learning about much more than that. We were studying the fundamental nature of reality itself." The video showed glimpses of equipment that looked nothing like the simple human technology the aliens had seen before. There were machines that seemed to bend space around them, and energy fields that pulsed with colors that did not exist in normal space. "We discovered that the universe has layers," Ross continued. "What?" "You call normal space is just the surface. Underneath, there are deeper levels of reality where different rules apply. While you were content to travel between stars, we learned to travel between dimensions." The alien scientists watching the video were stunned. Dimensional travel was theoretical for even the most advanced species. The mathematics alone were beyond what most civilizations could understand. "For 50 years, we have been preparing for this day," Ross said. "We hoped it would never come. We wanted to work with you, to share our discoveries, to build a better galaxy together, but we always knew that you might reject us." The video showed more impossible technology. Rooms that were bigger inside than outside. Computers that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Energy sources that drew power from the fabric of space itself. "We are not gone," Ross said, with a sad smile. "We are just somewhere you cannot follow. We have moved to a place where we can continue our work without interference." The video ended, leaving the alien investigators with more questions than answers. They searched the station completely, but found no clues about where the humans had actually gone. Similar discoveries were being made across the galaxy. Every abandoned human facility contained evidence of technology that should not have existed. The humans had been secretly developing capabilities that surpassed anything the Council members possessed. Dr. Alice Morgan's physics laboratory was found on a remote asteroid. Inside, the aliens discovered experiments that violated everything. They thought they knew about the laws of physics. Energy readings showed that she had been manipulating the basic forces that held the universe together. Her computer files contained a single message: "Time and space are not barriers, they are tools. We have learned to use them." The search expanded beyond the physical galaxy. The aliens began using their most advanced sensors to look for signs of dimensional disturbances or reality fluctuations that might indicate where the humans had gone. They found traces, faint energy signatures that suggested the activation of technology far beyond anything they had imagined. The signatures led to empty space, but space that had been altered in ways that made no sense. "They are not hiding in normal space," reported Dr. Zeleth. "They have moved to a different layer of reality entirely." The implications were staggering. While the council members had been dismissing humans as primitive, The humans had been developing technology that allowed them to transcend the physical limitations of the universe itself. Admiral Rachel Torres had left behind a final message. That was found in the Council's own communication systems. It had been hidden in their networks for months, programmed to activate only after the humans had been gone for a full year. "You are wondering where we went," Rachel's message began. "The answer is simple. We went where you could not follow us. We went to a place where intelligence and creativity matter more than age and tradition." The message continued. "We found others. Species that you rejected because they were too young, too different, or too strange. Civilizations that you dismissed because they did not fit your ideas of what advanced life should look like." The video showed images that made the alien viewers gasp. Vast cities that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Ships that could travel not just between stars but between realities. Beings that looked nothing like any species the Council had ever encountered. "We call ourselves the Alliance of the Forgotten," Rachel said. "We are all the species that you overlooked, all the civilizations that you considered unworthy of your attention. Together we have built something that you cannot imagine." The images showed technology that seemed like magic. Planets that existed in folded space, taking up no room in the normal universe but containing entire civilizations. Energy networks that connected worlds across impossible distances. "We tried to work within your system," Rachel continued. "We offered to share our knowledge, to contribute to galactic civilization. But you laughed at us. You told us we were too primitive to understand how the galaxy worked." The message showed human scientists working alongside alien beings that the Council had never seen before. Strange creatures with abilities that defied explanation. Civilizations that had developed along paths that the Council had never considered. "You made your choice," Rachel said. "You chose to judge us by your standards instead of trying to understand what we could offer. You chose to reject us based on your assumptions about what intelligence looks like." The video began to fade, but Rachel's final words were clear. "We are not angry. We are disappointed. The galaxy could have been so much more than it is. But you were not ready to see beyond your own limitations." The message ended with coordinates. But when the aliens tried to travel to those coordinates, they found only empty space. The humans had left them a map to nowhere, a final reminder of what they had lost. The search for humanity continued, but the aliens were beginning to understand that they were looking for something that had moved beyond their ability to find. The humans had not just left the galaxy. They had left the universe itself, moving to a place where the rules that govern reality were different, and they had taken with them all the other species that the Council had dismissed and forgotten. The galaxy was becoming a smaller, lonelier place, and the aliens were finally beginning to understand the true cost of their arrogance. 2 years had passed since humanity disappeared. The Galactic Council was falling apart. The great crystal hall where they used to meet was cracked and dark. Most of the seats were empty because many species could no longer afford to send representatives. Wars were happening everywhere. The Zephyrians and the Granite Collective were still fighting over mining rights. The Aquatic Federation had lost half their worlds to ecological disasters. The Lumina had retreated to their home systems and refused to talk to anyone. Only a few dozen alien representatives remained in the old council chambers. They met in smaller rooms now, trying to figure out how to survive without the humans who had been secretly holding their civilization together. Vexthari was old now. The stress of the past 2 years had aged him rapidly. His tentacles moved slowly, and his bioluminescent patterns were dim and faded. He sat in the remains of the council hall, staring at the empty space where the human delegation used to sit. "It has been 2 years," he said to the handful of other survivors. "Maybe it is time to accept that they are never coming back." Counselor Thane's rock-like form had cracks running through it. The Granite Collective had lost 60% of their industrial capacity without human engineers. Many of his people were struggling to maintain their basic technology. "We have learned to work together since they left," Thane said, his voice grinding like broken stone. Perhaps we can rebuild without them. Rebuild what? Asked Dr. Zelith, the Lumina scientist. Her energy form flickered weakly. Our research programs have failed. Our economies are collapsing, our people are dying. It was true. The galaxy was a very different place than it had been 2 years ago. Without human mediation, old conflicts had erupted into full-scale wars. Without human innovation, technological progress had stopped completely. Without human problem-solving, every challenge became an impossible obstacle. Then something impossible happened. A strange distortion appeared in the center of the ruined council chamber. The air itself seemed to twist and bend, creating patterns that hurt to look at directly. Energy crackled around the distortion, and reality itself seemed to be tearing open. The few remaining council members backed away in fear. They had seen nothing like this before. The distortion grew larger, and through it, they could see something that made no sense. It was a room, but not a room in normal space. The walls seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The ceiling showed stars that moved in patterns that defied physics. And standing in the center of this impossible space was a figure they recognized. Daniel Carter stepped through the distortion as if walking through a doorway. But he looked different now. Older, more confident, with an expression of deep sadness mixed with quiet strength. His simple human uniform had been replaced with clothing that seemed to shift and change as he moved. "Hello," Daniel said, his voice carrying clearly through the damaged chamber. "I hope you will forgive the dramatic entrance. Dimensional travel is still new to us, and we are still learning to control it properly." The alien survivors stared at him in shock. Vextari was the first to find his voice. "You came back," he whispered. "Yes," Daniel replied, "but not to stay. We wanted to show you something before we close this chapter forever." The distortion behind Daniel expanded, and through it, the aliens could see wonders that took their breath away. Cities that floated in folded space, connected by bridges of pure energy. Ships that moved through dimensions like fish swimming through water. Beings from dozens of species working together in perfect harmony. "We found others," Daniel continued. "Species that your council rejected because they were too young, too different, or too strange. The crystal singers from the Veil Nebula that you dismissed as primitive. The hive minds from the dark sector that you feared. The energy dancers from the outer rim that you could not understand." The images showed alien beings that the council members had never seen before. Beautiful, terrifying, wonderful creatures that defied every category the council had created for intelligent life. "Together, we built something new," Daniel said. "We call it the Alliance of the Forgotten. We are all the species that you overlooked, all the civilizations that you considered unworthy of your attention." The view expanded to show the full scope of what humanity and their allies had created. Entire galaxies connected by dimensional gates, planets that existed in pocket universes safe from the conflicts of normal space. Technology that seemed like magic, but was actually the result of combining the unique abilities of dozens of different species. "We tried to work within your system," Daniel continued, his voice filled with sadness. "We offered to share our knowledge, to contribute to galactic civilization, but you laughed at us. You told us we were too primitive to understand how the galaxy worked." Vextari felt shame wash over him. "We were wrong," he said quietly. "We were so very wrong." "Yes," Daniel agreed, "you were. But we do not hate you for it. We understand that your dismissal came from fear, not malice. You were afraid of change, afraid of new ideas, afraid of losing your place in the universe." The images began to fade, but Daniel's message continued. "The galaxy is vast, and there is room for all forms of intelligence, but we will no longer seek the approval of those who cannot see beyond their own limitations." "Wait," Thane called out desperately. "We have learned from our mistakes. We can work together now. We can build something better." Daniel paused, looking at the broken remnants of the once mighty council. "Perhaps you can," he said gently, "but you will have to do it without us. We have found our path, and it leads away from this place. Will we ever see you again?" asked Dr. Zelith. "Perhaps," Daniel replied. When you have learned to see beyond your own prejudices, when you have stopped judging others by your own standards, when you are ready to accept that intelligence comes in many forms, not just the ones you are familiar with, the distortion began to shrink, and Daniel prepared to step back through it. But before he left, he had one final message. We leave you. With this thought, he said, the universe is full of wonders that you cannot imagine. There are forms of life and intelligence that exist beyond your understanding. Do not make the same mistake with them that you made with us. The distortion closed with a soft sound like wind through leaves. Daniel Carter and the impossible room vanished, leaving the alien survivors alone in their broken council chamber. The silence stretched for a long time. Finally, Vextari spoke. We laughed at them, he said quietly. We dismissed them as primitive. We told them they had nothing to offer. And we were wrong, Thane added, his voice heavy with regret. They offered us partnership, Dr. Zeleth said. They offered us their knowledge, their creativity, their unique perspective. And we rejected it all because we thought we were better than them. The survivors sat in silence, contemplating the magnitude of their mistake. The humans had left without anger, without demands for revenge. They had simply taken their gifts and shared them with others who would appreciate them. The galaxy would continue to exist. Some species would learn to work together, creating new alliances and new forms of cooperation. Others would continue to make the same mistakes, judging others by their own limited standards, but humanity was gone. And they had taken with them all the other species that the Council had dismissed. The Alliance of the Forgotten was thriving, somewhere beyond the reach of normal space, building wonders that the Council could never have imagined. The greatest tragedy was not that humanity had left. The greatest tragedy was that they had been forced to leave, taking with them the potential for something truly magnificent. The Council had laughed at humanity's request to expand into the Outer Rim. They had mocked human ambitions and dismissed human capabilities. Now, in the silence of their broken civilization, they finally understood what they had lost, and they knew that they would never get another chance to make it right.